Nestled high in the Pennine hills, overlooking the rugged beauty of Saddleworth, lies a site steeped in ancient history. Castleshaw Roman Fort. From above, its footprint tells a story of empire and endurance. But nearly 2,000 years ago, this fort once guarded the Roman road between Manchester and York, a vital artery of control and commerce. Today, the landscape whispers echoes of the past, and thanks to ongoing archaeological work, those whispers are growing louder. In this video, we will explore the fort's fascinating history, its strategic importance, and secrets still buried beneath the soil. I'll also be speaking to Norman Redhead, the archaeologist leading the current dig, to uncover what new discoveries are being made and what they reveal about life on the edge of Roman Britain. First built around AD 79, during the campaign of Agricola, the original fort was a turf and timber stronghold, guarding the road between Manchester and York. This Roman road once linked two of the empire's great northern strongholds, Chester and York. These were no ordinary outposts. They were vast legionary fortresses bustling with soldiers, supplies and strategy. Castleshaw stood right along its vital route, a key checkpoint in the Roman military network. Think of it as the ancient equivalent of the M62, carving through the hills, connecting power and keeping the empire moving. Though abandoned by AD 95, its strategic value endured. A smaller fortlet rose in its place around AD 105, housing a smaller number of troops tasked with policing the rugged Transpennine route. By AD 125, even this was gone, leaving behind earthworks, ash pits, and fragments of Roman life. The discovery of stamped tile fragments tells a story. One bears the mark COH-4BRE. It stands for the 4th cohort of Bruci, auxiliary troops from Pannonia, now modern-day Hungary. These men were far from home, stationed on the edge of the Roman Empire. They weren't Roman citizens, but they fought to defend its frontier. Their presence at Castleshaw reveals the fort's strategic role in northern Britain. Each fragment is more than broken clay. It's a trace of lives once lived, orders once given, and a world once connected. A quiet echo of Rome's reach, stamped in terracotta.
I've been fascinated with this site since I first started digging here in 1985 with Greater Manchester Archaeology Unit. At that time we focused on the later fortlet that was built in the first part of the 2nd century AD on the site of Agricola's fort from the late 1st century. We had a fantastic community archaeology project in 2014 which generated a lot of excitement and interest among the local population. So we wanted to carry the research forward on the site, and we set up the Friends group to undertake what we call hinterland survey around the area of the forts. Why we're here today outside the east rampart of the fort is because a few years ago the Friends volunteers found remains of an annex, a military annex attached to the east side of the fort. So in 2021 we actually found a rampart and ditch on the south side of the annex, and since then we have found the north side as well. Within the annex it's really interesting because we've got two distinct halves. The south half, there's hardly any archaeological activity, which suggests it wasn't used much by the Romans, and we think perhaps it was used as a wagon park, maybe for stabling, for corralling animals, whereas the north half, where we're in today, is absolutely packed with archaeology, and it's been really exciting.
it's rewarding. I mean, it's not often you get a chance to dig near a Roman fort. It's sort of exceptional archaeology, really, and we're finding some really interesting features. Some big beam, well, how would we call it? Post holes, they call them, although they might be sort of driven piles, I suspect, sort of whacked into the ground. We've been sort of discussing that. Might be maybe by a pile driving machine, I suspect. It's going to take a lot of effort to whack those into the ground. They've got a nice, neat, rectangular form. So yeah, there's some real serious sort of effort being put into these structures.
So up here, the largest things that we're looking for, the most important thing we're looking for, is the actual buildings and the features themselves. In the northwest, particularly with Roman archaeology, but all sorts of archaeology in the northwest, a lot of the finds are quite damaged because there's a lot of acidity in the soil. A lot of the actual land around us and the groups who were operating in this landscape really functioned on different economies than, say, down south with pastoralism. So actually, you don't have agriculture as predominant. Also, there's ideas that you have a barter economy. So actually, maybe don't find so many finds, but rather we're trying to find features as the primary objective. But what we have found is lots of different styles of pottery. We found a chunk of amphora. Amphoras are particularly famous for carrying wine. Some creamware, some orangeware, and I believe we found a little bit of Samian ware, which is particularly well decorated, fancy high status pottery, which actually originates in central France in Gaul time, but then this diversifies into different areas later on. They're the particular bits we've found. We also found a coin, although it's so degraded and damaged that it's going to need to go have some lab work to know particularly what it is. There is the potential that actually it's significantly later. And what we find across all the site in the topsoil is more kind of early modern style pottery, 17th, 18th, 19th century stuff as well. Because although there's only a handful of houses now, in the landscape actually we had a very significant settlement here that as the Industrial Revolution developed, actually the landscape becomes less and less settled, and particularly with the reservoirs. For instance, there was villages in the valleys that actually were entirely removed for the reservoirs. So there's a lot of activity that was happening in these landscapes that we might not be able to see now, but by digging we find massive amounts of evidence for it and traces of all sorts, really.
This trench for 2 weekends now, and the whole idea is that we're going down in layers, and when I say layers, as in we're finding different layers of earth to find out the activity of what's been going on, because there's been quite a lot of activity in all of this section in the annex to the fort. So each layer tells us a different story, a different bit of activity. At the moment, there's like a little trench there, and that was excavated yesterday. It was just full of charcoal. So what we think was there was a plank that was burnt in situ. There's a series of little holes that Nats is now excavating. They're post holes, but because they're so close together, they're different sequences. So different phases of building in this little trench, because we think there's a building slot where they're trying to match up over there. The bit that I'm on at the moment, I don't know if you can see, there's like a really dark patch coming up here, which could be another post hole because it's square at the moment. But that could change with a trial's notice. But as you see, we've gone from like quite a hard clay surface, which was one activity, and now down onto this surface. And Janet is now a little bit lower than me again. The interesting thing about this trench is at the end, the bit at the end there, where this is the most exciting thing, where I don't know if you can actually see, we've got like a series of stripes. There's like grey and yellow stripes in the sidewall. Yeah, so what we think that is, it's actually a wattled wall where they basically had a length of timber, then they had uprights in that timber, and then they weaved the willow in there, and then they would have daubed it with mud, and that's the remnants of the uprights, which is really exciting for us to see. Because the soil is so acidic at Castleshaw, we very rarely find anything, because the soil is not conclusive to keeping anything in one piece. We've been lucky that we have found little bits and pieces, so to find something like that is quite exciting, because that shows the type of building types that were going on here, along with the big beam slots we've got as well. We're finding little sections. We're finding quite a lot of nails, like building nails, like you'd find putting the sections together. And in some of the other trenches, they've been really lucky in finding big pieces of pottery, which again is really unusual at Castleshaw, because if you do find any pottery, it normally just crumbles in your hand, because the acidic soil is just terrible for that. So it's not like Vindolanda, where we're finding lots of exciting finds, but what we are finding is very rewarding, basically. And it's exciting to actually try and find out what was going on at the annex, because it is an absolute jigsaw puzzle of lots of activity, of ovens, fast food. We basically think it's the fast food area of the Roman road.
The archaeology is coming out as two main phases. So in the first phase, we have a range of timber buildings lined up against a stone platform, a working platform that was accessed from the east gate of the fort. Those timber buildings seem to be very short-lived. They're demolished, pulled out, the timbers are pulled out, and then the air is capped with clay and shell. And then we get this intense cooking activity on here. We've got a variety of clay ovens for cooking meat, for roasting meat. We've got stone ovens for baking bread, and we have at least one corn drying kiln. We know the Romans were growing spelt wheat in the valley, so before it could be used for baking bread, they'd have had to dry the grain before grinding it in mortaria. We also have a number of halves as well, and those overlay that early phase of building. So this year we're trying to develop our understanding of the early phase of timber buildings, to try and get the plan form of those rooms and structures. Are we looking at one big shed, or are we looking at several different buildings? So we're gradually teasing that out of the site. And the archaeology is quite deep in places, so it's quite a challenge. And on top of that, we're also looking at the distribution of the ovens and the halves. And this season we found another stone oven already, and we've got what looks like a possible another kiln coming up on the far side of the site.
Circle around there. You see that? Yeah. We think what this was a bread oven, that the Romans were baking bread in the Roman period. So there would have been a nice flat floor, and this bit that's been cut here, ignore that, that's something that we've done. There would have been a nice flat floor, and what they would have done is put some wood in, or fuel, brought the heat up, nice domed roof, a bit like the pizza ovens we get today, raked out the wood, and then they were put in the dough, and then they'd bake their bread. And who knows, they might have even been making pizzas. We don't know. But if they did, they didn't have tomatoes. The Romans didn't know about tomatoes. They didn't have tomatoes, they didn't really know what to ask. I don't think they'd put.
It is an ongoing thing that each year we feel like we've potentially found the Bathhouse. We haven't as of yet. We will, but we haven't as of yet. But there was quite a lot of interest in this trench because further up there was a lot of evidence for immense burning and very large stonework, and we did potentially think we'd had the stoking chamber. But it's a very deceptive quizzling of a trench because actually that's not the case at all. But I'll let you speak about the geophys if you want.
Okay, well that's... I'll be careful what I say here. Yeah, I did some geophys, crikey, when was it? 2 years ago, I think, as part of my dissertation. So I sort of retired to do that, MA at Sheffield Uni. Anyway, so we did some ground penetrating radar and we found some interesting things on the south side of the fort. But yeah, there's sort of some water management features there, shall we say. But we need to investigate further, really, to see what they are. So yeah, it's not been found, but personally I think there probably is one. All the forts I've looked at seem to have bathhouses, like Wigan, Manchester, Slack nearby. So yeah, I don't see why not. Yeah, I think so.
I think the one slight issue though is that it is very briefly occupied. So there is the chance that they may not have got to building it yet. So it's highly speculative. We expect there to be one. But if there wasn't one, there's enough reasoning for it not to be here. But we do expect there to be one. It is kind of one of the core infrastructural elements of a fort you'd expect. You'd expect it outside the fort. But because it's only occupied for such a small period of time, and there's two major phases, there's a first phase, then it's destroyed, and then it's reoccupied on a much smaller scale, you wouldn't be surprised if potentially there's not one there. But hopefully there is, because that would be really, really nice.
What did Norman and his incredible team of volunteers uncover this season at Castleshaw's military annex? "11 trenches, 4 test pits, 15 days of digging, and a flood of Roman revelations. They traced timber buildings far larger than anyone expected, with walls stretching over 14 metres and preserved floor beams still in place. These weren't just shelters, they were structured, partitioned, and possibly storerooms. But then the landscape changed, the buildings were dismantled, the ground resurfaced, and suddenly, Castleshaw became a Roman kitchen. Clay ovens roasting meat, stone ovens baking bread, and kilns drying spelt wheat grown right here in the valley. Trench 20 delivered pottery, greyware, creamware, mortarium, even amphora, and some mysterious iron finds that hint at deeper stories still to be told. The team also mapped the northeast corner of the annex defences, proving they stretch further east than the nearby lane ever let us believe. And here's the big picture. This annex wasn't just an outpost, it was a Roman service station, a pit stop for travellers and wagons climbing a steep ascent to Stanage. Food, drink, draft animals, all under the watchful eye of the fort's commander. Thanks to Norman and 37 dedicated volunteers and 364 curious visitors, the story of Castleshaw continues to unfold. If you're interested in learning more, go to castleshawarchaeology.co.uk and explore the Friends Dig Diary. Until next season, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep Castleshaw's history alive.